Imam al-Bukhari, rahimahullah ta'ala, he collected in the Sahih that the noble companion Hudhayfa ibn al-Yaman radiyallahu anhu said, كان الناس يسألون رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم عن الخير. He said that people used to ask the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam about the good. They would ask the Prophet alaihi salatu wasallam about good things. وَكُنْتُ أَسْأَلُهُ عَنِ الشَّرِّ مَخَافَةَ أَنْ يُدْرِكَنِي. He said, however, I used to ask the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam about evil, out of fear that it would reach me. And likewise, it was stated by a poet. He said, عَرَفْتُ الشَّرَّ لَا لِلشَّرِّ عَرَفْتُ الشَّرَّ لَا لِلشَّرِّ لَكِنْ لِتَوَقِّيهِ. He said, I learned about evil, not for the sake of evil, but so that I could stay away from it. وَمَنْ لَا يَعْرِفُ الشَّرَّ مِنَ الْخَيْرِ يَقَعُ فِيهِ. And whoever doesn't know the difference between evil and good, then he's going to fall into it. So this is the reason why we learn about a shirk. This is the reason why we learn about disbelief and things that are not permissible, so that we will have insight and knowledge concerning them, and so that we can stay far away from them. So with this being said, and with this being the case, the portion of the treatise that we're going to deal with tonight, inshallah ta'ala, is the nullifiers of Islam. And I don't really have access to the PDF, but for the brothers who have the translation of the PDF, I believe it's page 15. The third nullifier. So, as some of us are already aware, Shaykh al-Islam Muhammad ibn Abdul Wahhab, when he composed this or he put this together, he mentioned 10 nullifiers of Islam. So because of the lack of time, I'm going to focus on just 2 of the nullifiers that he mentioned. The ones I felt are most prevalent and very common. Who has the PDF?
Page 15. Nullifiers of Islam.
No. Go to the top of page 16. The top of page 16. You see it? طيب, what did he say? من لم يكفر المشركين أو شك في كفرهم أو صحح مذهبهم. So the third nullifier that Shaykh al-Islam Muhammad ibn Abdul Wahhab mentioned is that whoever does not, well, let's stick with the translation that's here. He says, he who does not make takfir. And takfir, they translate it as excommunicate. Excommunicate, which is, I guess, the proper term. But we would just say that whoever doesn't declare the mushrikun to be disbelievers, or he has doubts their disbelief, or holds their beliefs as valid, is a disbeliever. So, the first thing, before we even continue, مَنْ لَمْ يُكَفِّرِ الْمُشْرِكِينَ. Whoever does not declare the polytheists to be disbelievers. What is the definition of a polytheist?
A person who believes in other than Allah.
Person who believes in other than Allah. Close.
Or who associates partners with Allah.
نعم. أن تجعل الله ندا وهو خلقك. Is that you associate or ascribe partners to Allah, and He's the one who created you. Right? That's the greatest form of oppression. Now, a person takes the right of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, something that's the sole right of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and then he directs it to someone or something from the creation. That's the greatest form of oppression. That's why Allah Jalla wa Ala, He said, إِنَّ الشِّرْكَ لَظُلْمٌ عَظِيمٌ. Indeed, polytheism is a great oppression. So, polytheism, that's the gist of it. When a person ascribes something in the worship of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, that is a shirk. So the person who doesn't declare the polytheist to be a disbeliever, or he doubts this person's disbelief, he has doubts with regard to this person being a disbeliever, or he approves of his way, kafara, then he has disbelief. So if a person is worshiping idols, statues, rocks, a cow, like the Hindus, or even, like the cross, right, like the Catholics, the Christians, or say they worship Isa alayhi salam, all of these people are considered mushrikun. The person who worships a cow and the person who worships Isa alayhi salam, they all have the same term. Mushrikun. They're all polytheists. Allah Jalla wa Ala, He said, وَإِذْ قَالَ اللَّهُ يَا عِيسَى بْنَ مَرْيَمَ أَأَنْتَ قُلْتَ لِلنَّاسِ اتَّخِذُونِي وَأُمِّيَ إِلَٰهَيْنِ مِن دُونِ اللَّهِ in Surah Al-Ma'idah. The meaning of the verse, and when Allah will say to Isa, the son of Mary, did you tell the people to take me, or to take you and your mother as two deities beside Allah? And likewise Allah Jalla wa Ala said, لَقَدْ كَفَرَ الَّذِينَ قَالُوا إِنَّ اللَّهَ هُوَ الْمَسِيحُ بْنُ مَرْيَمَ. They have disbelieved those who said that Allah is Al-Masih, that He is Isa, the son of Mary. So the person who doesn't declare these type of people, whether they say they worship Isa, or they worship a rock, or they worship a cow, or whatever they worship, if they don't declare these people to be mushrikun, to be disbelievers, because in essence they're also disbelievers, then this person is also a disbeliever. And likewise, now, if a person, this point is going to come, inshallah. As for his statements, وَقَوْلُهُ أَوْ شَكَّ فِي كُفْرِهِمْ كَفَرَ. Likewise, if a person has doubt, he has doubt with regard to their disbelief. And the reason for this, the reason why this person is also a disbeliever, is because doubt concerning the truth is the same as denial. When a person has doubt when it comes to something that's reality, it's the truth, there's no question about it, then that in itself is denial. So for example, if a person said, Wallahi, I don't know if the Christians and the Jews are upon the truth or not. If a person made a statement like that. Or a person says, everyone can choose whatever religion they want to choose. As long as a person believes in God, they're good. And we hear stuff like this all the time. And a person, especially in this day and time, because there's a lot of doubts that are circulating around, especially on social media. But for example, if a person said he's a Muslim, and then for example he says, I'm not sure, if the Christians and the Jews are going to be in paradise. And then he might even quote to you a verse from the Quran. And we're going to mention this because we want everyone to be aware of these type of doubts. In Surah Al-Baqarah, Allah Jalla wa Ala said, إِنَّ الَّذِينَ آمَنُوا وَالَّذِينَ هَادُوا وَالنَّصَارَى وَالصَّابِئِينَ مَنْ آمَنَ بِاللَّهِ وَالْيَوْمِ الْآخِرِ وَعَمِلَ صَالِحًا فَلَهُمْ أَجْرُهُمْ عِنْدَ رَبِّهِمْ وَلَا خَوْفٌ عَلَيْهِمْ وَلَا هُمْ يَحْزَنُونَ. Indeed, those who believe and those who are Jews and Christians and the Sabians, and we're going to come back to what's intended by that, and those who believe in Allah in the last day and they do righteous deeds, for them they will have their reward with their Lord. وَلَا خَوْفٌ عَلَيْهِمْ وَلَا هُمْ يَحْزَنُونَ. And they will not fear and they will not grieve. If a person, for example, was to quote that verse to you and say, this verse is telling us right here, my grandmother that passed away and she was a Protestant, or she was Baptist, or she was Catholic, or whatever the case was, she's going to be in heaven because she was a good practicing Christian woman. If someone quoted this verse to you right now, what would you say to them? Huh?
Incorrect.
Incorrect. Why?
Because they referring to the time of Isa and Musa before Christianity.
Nah. All right. So what do you mean? That's for in the time of Isa and Musa. Yeah. Elaborate just a little bit more. You're right there, but it needs a little bit more
Those
explanation.
People of the times with their Nabis, they were Muslim. They were Muslim. They didn't practice shirk. They didn't worship Moses or Isa or any idols or anything.
Nah.
They was Muslim.
Ahsan. So basically, any person during those times, for example, let's start with Musa alayhi salam, because the Jews, their religion is based around which prophet? Musa alayhi salam. Those people who lived in the time of Musa alayhi salam, and they believed in him, and they followed him, right? They were considered Muslims. They were considered Muslims. In the time of Isa alayhi salam, the people who believed in Allah, they believed in Isa and they followed him, they were Muslims. So, this is what is implied by this verse. It's not talking about the Christians and the Jews today. It's talking about the Jews and the Christians during their times, and likewise after their time. For example, those who followed Musa alayhi salam, they believed in Musa and they followed him until the time of Isa alayhi salam. Because once Isa alayhi salam came, then they had to believe in him. You see? So, once Isa alayhi salam was sent as a prophet and messenger, then during that time it became binding upon those people to believe in him. If they believed in him and they followed him, they were Muslims. So this is what's implied by this verse. Who are the Sabians? وَالصَّابِئُونَ وَالصَّابِئِينَ.
Fire worshippers.
Fire worshippers? That's al-Majus. Who are the Sabians? We talked about this before in the 40 hadith. يقال هذا. So some of the scholars, so it's a lot of difference of opinion when it comes to who are the Sabiun. So some say these were people from the time of Ibrahim alayhi salam, and they used to worship the stars, and it's been mentioned that they used to worship angels. Okay? If a person worships an angel, are they a muwahid? They're not a muwahid. Alright, so there's different statements that have been said regarding as-Sabiun. So Ash-Shafi'i rahimahullah, he said, Hum sinfun min al-Nasara. This was his opinion. He said that they are a sect from Christianity. As-Sabiun are a sect from Christianity. Ibn al-Qayyim, he said, وَهَذِهِ أُمَّةٌ قَدِيمَةٌ قَبْلَ الْيَهُودِ وَالنَّصَارَى. And this just shows you that it's a lot of difference of opinion in terms of who as-Sabiun are. He said, Ibn al-Qayyim, he said, this is a old nation. This is an ancient nation. قَبْلَ الْيَهُودِ وَالنَّصَارَى. They came before the Jews and the Christians. وَهُمْ أَنْوَاعٌ. And they are different factions, or you could say they're different sects. صَابِئَةٌ حُنَفَاءٌ وَصَابِئَةٌ مُشْرِكُونَ. So in general, they broke down to two different types of sects. You had a sect that were upon Tawheed, and you had a sect that were mushrikun. You had a sect that were upon Tawheed, and you had people who were Sabi'un that fell into a shirk. Now, so that verse is clear. That verse is clear. Because these type of doubts come up. Where a person might read a verse from the Quran. Or a person, for example, he might go to work. And then his co-worker might come to him. And then he might have a translation of the Noble Quran. And he might take out a verse and he says, isn't that talking about the same thing that we believe in? And I'll give you another example. When I lived in Pennsylvania, we used to get mail from a Christian organization. So one time they sent us something in the mail with a verse from the Quran. It was a translation, of course. But in this verse, it mentioned the word ruh. It mentioned the word ruh. So in general, how is that translated? Spirit. It's sometimes translated as soul, but in the Quran, it's translated as spirit. So it basically, these people, what they were trying to get at is that you guys believe in the spirit as well. That's what they were getting at. That's what they were trying to imply. Because what do they believe in? The Father, the Son, the Holy Ghost, right? That's what they say, right? So they took a verse from the Quran, distorted the meaning and the correct understanding of it, and then they were trying to say, no, you guys need to come to Christianity. Because your book is saying the same thing that our book says, right? What's the issue with that? What's implied by ruh in general? When you see that in the Quran, what's implied? It depends on the verse. It depends on the verse. So sometimes it can mean the soul. Sometimes it can be referring to Jibreel alayhi salam. ها؟ لا إذا وجدت كلمة روح في القرآن هذا تعني إيش؟ أي جبريل نعم. So it can sometimes كما قلنا. So sometimes it can mean soul. It can be referring to Jibreel alayhi salam. So the point is, we have to be aware of these type of doubts, because there's people who their ultimate goal is to try to get you to embrace Christianity and leave Islam. So we have to be aware of this. Also another shubha, another doubt. And this goes back to this point. Oh shakka fi kufrihim. Right? A person has doubt with regard to them being disbelievers, or a doubt with regard to their disbelief. A person says, for example, I'm not sure, it goes back to what we mentioned not too long ago. I'm not sure if they're going to be in paradise or in the hellfire. I'm not sure. Allah knows best. I've heard that. I've heard people who say they're Muslims say things like that. I don't know if they're going to be in paradise. I don't know if they're going to be hell. Allah knows who's Muslim. Have you ever heard that? Allah knows who's Muslim. Right? And when it comes to rulings dealing with anything connected to the religion, مَا لَنَا إِلَّا الظَّاهِرِ. We only go based upon what's apparent. So if a person told us that they were a Muslim in this world, we leave it like that. Whatever their real situation is, or the reality of their munafiq, or they're not really a Muslim, that's between them and their Lord. But in general, if a person says they're a Christian and they die like that, in general, where do we say they're going? The hellfire. There's no doubt about that. Some years ago, there was a sister. This is another doubt. And this is why we have to be careful when it comes to mysticism. Some people, they don't say they're Sufi straight up, but they have tendencies of that. So some years ago, there was a sister, and she mentioned that she had a woman who used to take her to the grocery store. She would take her run errands or whatever the case was. And this woman was a Christian. So to make a long story short, this woman, she got sick and she passed away. So this sister, she mentioned that she saw this lady in a dream. You see where this is going now, right? She saw this lady in a dream, and she was, it's in Arabic, mabsuta, sa'ida, farhana, right? She's happy, she's all up, jubilated, whatever word you want to use. She's happy, everything, It's like she's in a happy state. So the sister said when she saw her, she said, it's like, she didn't say it straight up, but indirectly is as though she's saying, it's like she's in paradise. It's as though she's in paradise. And even though she didn't say it, that's what she was implying. What's the issue with that? If a person was to come to you and bring up something like that, they're saying, I had a dream. Because we know in authentic hadith, sometimes dreams do come true. I'll give you an example. Before I got accepted to Medina University, I had a dream 2 times that I got accepted before I even went over there. Right? So sometimes dreams do happen. But what's the issue with this particular incident that I'm mentioning right now? What's the issue with it? Now it's possible that what this sister saw could have been the shaitan. Now it's possible that the shaitan can take on a person's form and make it look like as though, they're in a happy state, they're in paradise, or whatever the case is. It's possible. The scholars mention this. And also another point is, dreams are not wahi. Alright? Dreams are not revelation. That's very important. We have to understand that. So when you have a dream, sometimes you can have a bad dream, you can have a good dream. At the end of the day, it's not revelation. So if you have a bad dream, of course, from the sunnah is that you don't mention it to no one. Right? Especially the youth, they might have a bad dream. They wake up, Mom, I had a dream. I was getting eaten by a lion, or whatever the case is. I was falling from a building. You're not supposed to mention it. You're not supposed to mention it. The sunnah is that you're not supposed to mention it. So when it comes to these type of issues, we only go based upon what's apparent. If a person openly manifested and said that they were Muslim in this world, we say they were a Muslim. If they said they were Christian, then we say they were a Christian. In general, if a person dies upon Christianity, they're in the hellfire. Now, we can't say this and apply this to we can't apply this to specific situations. For example, a person has a grandmother, she is a Christian, and she dies. All right? A person can't say she's in the hellfire 100%, I have no doubt about that. You can't say that. Why? Because there's a possibility she could have took her shahada before she passed away. But the general ruling is what? She's in the hellfire. That's clear. Now, طيب. As for his statement, rahimahullah, where he said, أو صحح مذهبهم, or he approves of their way. So for example, a person says, we go from, so what's the first thing? He doesn't declare them to be disbelievers. The second thing, he has doubt. He's not sure, concerning their disbelief. The last thing, or the third part, he approves of their way. And this is extremely dangerous. Now a person says, these disbelievers are upon the truth. And some might say, you hear this with the Sufiya, الطرق إلى الله تنوعت, right? The ways of getting to Allah are many. There's a lot of ways to get to Allah, You don't have to necessarily be a Muslim. This is some things that you might hear a person who is, straight up a flaming Sufi that say things like this. And you might have people who will say, and this is a statement which is incorrect. They might say that the Jews and the Christians, their religion is correct in their view, just as Islam is correct in our view.
We're all from the Abrahamic faith,
That's going to come up. But you might hear this. A person might say the religion of the Jews and the Christians is correct according to their view, just as Islam is correct according to the view of the Muslims. What's the issue with that statement?
Holding their beliefs is valid.
It's holding their beliefs to be valid. It has some remnants of that, but it's something else that's a little bit more obvious.
On this day I have completed your religion.
Now, we're not talking about in terms of Islam being the truth. We know Islam is the truth. But what's the issue when a person makes a statement like that? If a Muslim was to say that, Judaism, Christianity is correct according in their view, just as Islam is correct in our view. What's the issue with that?
You pray to the same God.
I want to know what the issue is with that statement.
You don't have rights. You don't have good knowledge.
Of course, a person doesn't have good knowledge. The issue with that statement, that's the answer. It's not based upon what you view. It's not based upon what you think. Okay? Because a person can view something to be reality and to be the truth, and it's straight nonsense. Especially in this day and time, you hear about so many different conspiracy theories, right? And some things, it might have some validity to it, but just in general, you have a lot of crazy conspiracy theories, right? So a person might say such and such, in my view, is reality. No, it's the truth 100%. It's no doubt about it. But the reality of the matter is, that's not the case. So it's not based upon what you think. It's not based upon what you view to be the truth. It's based upon reality. And Islam, alhamdulillah, is the religion of Allah. There's no doubt about it. And that's what Muslims view, but it's the reality. So it's a difference between a person holding a view and something actually being true and being the reality. And also, there's many people who are not even Muslim who agree with the Muslims, and they know that Islam is the truth. I'll give you an example. The uncle of the Prophet ﷺ, Abu Talib. He knew Islam was the truth. And he died upon his shirk. Why? Because he was afraid of what people were going to say about him because he left the religion of his forefathers. So in general, when you find a person that's like that, and there's a lot of people who are like that, you might have relatives that are like that. They might be a Christian, or they might be whatever. And they say, I know Islam is the truth, but I just can't give up this swine. I know Islam is the truth, but I just can't stop drinking alcohol. I know Islam is the truth, but leave me be. You have people who talk like this. So, when you find people like this, and they don't want to embrace Islam, they know Islam, they acknowledge Islam is the truth, in general, it's due to arrogance, or it's due to fanaticism, or it's just due to blind following, like the case of Abu Talib. And going back to what the brother brought up about the thing about Abrahamic religions, this is basically the gist of what we want to talk about tonight. Because this is actually something that's being promoted amongst people who say that they're Muslim. So they call it ad-da'wa ila wahdat al-adyan. Right? Now you see those stickers on the bumpers, right? Coexist. You see like the crescent, the cross, and what's the Star of David or something like that.
And they probably threw a rainbow on there now.
Allah musta'an. Allah musta'an. So this is a very dangerous call. So these people essentially are basically saying Islam, Judaism, Christianity, we're all one. As long as you believe in one of these religions, you're good. You could be a Jew that goes out, they don't use their car on Saturday, on Sabbath or whatever they say. Or you could be a Christian that goes to the church on Sunday, or you could be a Muslim, come to Jumu'ah on Friday, you're good. As long as you're one of these faiths, that you ascribe yourself to one of these faiths. And this is something that's being promoted, unfortunately. So of course this is a da'wah that's kufr. This is a call of disbelief. Because we mentioned some verses already with regard to Isa alayhi salam. And we're going to mention some other verses. Allah Jalla wa Ala, He said, لَقَدْ كَفَرَ الَّذِينَ قَالُوا إِنَّ اللَّهَ هُوَ الْمَسِيحُ بْنُ مَرْيَمَ. We mentioned this verse. They have indeed disbelieved those who say that Allah is Al-Masih, the son of Mary. And likewise He said, لَقَدْ كَفَرَ الَّذِينَ قَالُوا إِنَّ اللَّهَ ثَالِثُ ثَلَاثَةٍ. Right? This is also in Surah Al-Ma'idah. Both these verses are in Surah Al-Ma'idah. They have disbelieved those who say that Allah is the third of three. And Allah Jalla wa Ala, He said regarding the Yahud, ذَلِكَ بِأَنَّهُمْ كَانُوا يَكْفُرُونَ بِآيَاتِ اللَّهِ وَيَقْتُلُونَ النَّبِيِّينَ بِغَيْرِ الْحَقِّ ذَلِكَ بِمَا عَصَوْا وَكَانُوا يَعْتَدُونَ. That is because they used to disbelieve in the ayat of Allah, and they used to kill the prophets without right. This is a quality and characteristic of the Yahud, of the Jews, that they used to kill prophets. And this is because they disbelieved, or this is because they disobeyed, and because they used to transgress. And because they used to transgress. And likewise Allah Jalla wa Ala said, فَلَمَّا جَاءَهُمْ مَا عَرَفُوا كَفَرُوا بِهِ فَلَعْنَةُ اللَّهِ عَلَى الْكَافِرِينَ. And when it came to them, that which they recognized, they disbelieved in it. فَلَعْنَةُ اللَّهِ عَلَى الْكَافِرِينَ. So the curse of Allah be upon the disbelievers. All of these verses explicitly state that the Christians and the Jews are disbelievers. So for a person to say it's okay to be a Christian or a Jew, that's disbelief. That's clear disbelief. Likewise, when a person calls to, the unification of the religions, this also entails something else. This also entails something else that's disbelief. The brothers can think of it. The first one is clear. You're believing in something that's disbelief. You're approving of the way and the belief of the Christians and the Jews. That's clear. That's disbelief. Allah called it disbelief, and He called them disbelievers in the Quran. That's clear. There's something else. I'll give you a hint. It's connected to the second part of the Shahada.
They don't give up believing in Rasulullah.
Nah. It's connected to that. So when a person believes in wahdatul adyan, the unification of the religions, then this is essentially saying that Muhammad alayhi salatu wasalam was not sent to all of mankind. Because if you can be a Jew, you can be a Christian, or you can be a Muslim, then you're saying the Jews and the Christians don't have to follow Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And you have some people, when you hear this from the Christians, right? They say that Muhammad alayhi salatu wasalam was only sent to the Arab. They say he was only sent, what are they saying? To the Arabs. Right? He was only sent to the Arabs. And Allah Jalla wa Ala, in the Quran, He mentions a verse that's explicit in terms of this doubt right here. وَمَا أَرْسَلْنَاكَ إِلَّا كَافَةً لِلنَّاسِ. And we did not send you, meaning Muhammad alayhi salatu wasalam, except to all of mankind. So Muhammad alayhi salatu wasalam was sent to the Arab, he was sent to the Africans, he was sent to the Chinese, he was sent to everyone. He was sent to everyone. And likewise Allah Jalla wa Ala said, وَمَنْ يَبْتَغِي غَيْرَ الْإِسْلَامِ دِينًا فَلَنْ يُقْبَلَ مِنْهُ. Whoever seeks a religion other than Islam is never going to be accepted from him. وَهُوَ فِي الْآخِرَةِ مِنَ الْخَاسِرِينَ. And in the hereafter, he's going to be one of the losers. So the person who doesn't accept or believe in the message of Muhammad alayhi salatu wasalam, or he says you can choose another religion other than Islam, this person is a disbeliever. So a person might say, go ahead.
So what about Muslims who we believe in the Quran, but the Hadith we don't?
The Quraniyun?
No.
Well, remind me of that at the end, inshallah. We'll come back to that. Remind me of that at the end, inshallah. So the person who doesn't believe in the message of Muhammad alayhi salatu wasalam, or he says you can, be a Christian, you can be a Jew, this person is a disbeliever. He's a disbeliever. So a person might say, you have some Christians who say that Isa alayhi salam is a prophet. And we've already responded to the doubt. It's clear as day right now. But you still might have a person who's a Muslim, and they come to you and they say, you have Christians who say Isa alayhi salam is a prophet. You have, for example, people from Ethiopia. I can think of offhand. And you have some people here in the States that have this belief as well. You have different denominations of Christianity that say that Isa alayhi salam was a prophet. He wasn't God. They view God to be one. Right? So let me ask one of the youth, see who's been paying attention, because we just responded to this doubt. What's the issue with that? Abdurrahman. تعرف? طيب. Muhammad. What's the issue? If a person comes to you at your job and they say, you have Christians that don't worship Isa alayhi salam. They believe in Allah. They believe in the oneness of Allah. Are you going to say that these people are going to the hellfire? What's going to be your response? You don't know. Okay. That's a safe way if you don't know. Anyone else? I was going to say, I don't know, straight up. Mu'adh, you know? Ammar. Guys, what are you guys doing tonight? Tayyib, someone else.
To go back on how you mentioned already, if you do not take, or if you do not, there's some who believe in the way, but if they project Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, they're not Muslim.
No, exactly. So we just said it.
Back in the day, they would have been Muslim.
Guys. Focus. We already, right before I asked you, we had literally went over the point. The point, or the response to it, is that we know La ilaha illallah is two parts. For those you guys call that then, I think all of you call that then. I hear you call that then, right? Ashhadu an la ilaha illallah. You say it 2 times. After that, what do you say? Ashhadu anna Muhammadan Rasulullah. I bear witness that Muhammad is a messenger of Allah. So if a person doesn't accept Muhammad, if they don't believe in Muhammad, alayhi salatu wasalam, and they don't follow Muhammad, alayhi salatu wasalam, then they're not a Muslim. They're a disbeliever. It doesn't matter if they only say they believe in one God. That person is a disbeliever. So it's very important that we are aware of these different plots, because you have shayateen al-jinn and shayateen al-ins. Right? You have devils from amongst the jinn and you have devils from amongst mankind. So these are some of the doubts that these people are propagating. They want to make you have doubt when it comes to your religion. So you have to be aware of these type of doubts. You have to be aware of these type of doubts. Now, and likewise, to conclude, the Prophet ﷺ, he mentioned in the authentic hadith, وَالَّذِي نَفْسُ مُحَمَّدٍ بِيَدِهِ لَا يَسْمَعُ بِي أَحَدٌ مِنْ هَذِهِ الْأُمَّةِ يَهُودِيٌّ وَلَا نَصْرَانِيٌّ ثُمَّ يَمُوتُ وَلَمْ يُؤْمِنْ بِالَّذِي أُرْسِلْتُ بِهِ إِلَّا كَانَ مِنْ أَصْحَابِ النَّارِ. He said that وَالَّذِي نَفْسُ مُحَمَّدٍ بِيَدِهِ, by the one in whose soul, by the one in whose hand is the soul of Muhammad. No one hears about me from this nation. No one hears about me from this nation, whether they're a Jew or a Christian, and then they die like that, and they don't believe in that which I was sent with, إِلَّا كَانَ مِنْ أَصْحَابِ النَّارِ, except that this person is going to be where? In the hellfire. In the hellfire. So the text from the Quran and the Sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ are clear when it comes to this issue of declaring the polytheists and the disbelievers to be disbelievers. Now, what was your question again about the Quran? Now, so the Sunnah is wahi. The Sunnah is wahi. So if a person is ignorant, then you have to inform them. You have to inform them. And you have to make it clear to them that, we have to believe, of course, in the Quran, and we have to believe in the Sunnah. Because, let's put it like this. I'm going to give you an example. When it comes to making wudu, making ablution for the prayer, you're going to find it's going to be mentioned in Surah An-Nisa or Surah Al-Ma'idah. Right? Surah Al-Ma'idah? An-Nisa wal-Ma'idah. Okay. It mentions about making wudu. How do you know exactly how to make wudu? The Sunnah. Is the only way. If you read general verses from the Quran, it's not going to go into detail. The detail comes in the Sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ. So there's no way that person can abandon one and just say, I'm just going with the Quran. No, you have to also take the Sunnah because the Sunnah is wahi.
But they're upon that.
Say it again?
They are upon that.
Naam, that's clear. They're upon that. That's why I'm saying, if you come across a person like that, you clarify to him that the reason why it's not enough for you to follow just the Quran. وَمَا آتَاكُمُ الرَّسُولُ فَخُذُوهُ. Right? Allah says in the Quran, whatever the messenger gives you, take it. That shows that you have to follow him. وَمَا نَهَاكُمْ عَنْهُ فَانْتَهُوا. Whatever he forbids you from, then stay away from it. There's numerous verses in the Quran that show that you have to follow the Sunnah. So it is clear in terms of the falsehood of that belief. But in general, if you come across a person like that, I guarantee you, 9 out of 10 times, they're ignorant. We have people who come to this masjid, and some of the brothers can attest to this. We have people who come to this masjid, they pray with us, they're Shia. They put their thing on the ground, their little paper or whatever, and they prostrate on it after the salat, all that, right? Akhi, what can you do other than take him by the hand, take him over there and advise him? What are you going to do? You're going to say you're a kafir? You can't. That's not. Yeah. What are you going to get out of that? You got to inform people. You got to educate people. A lot of people are ignorant. A lot of people are ignorant. So the point is, we have to be aware of these type of issues. We have to have insight. And like our brother, Hafidhullah, was mentioning, there are things in this religion that you are not excused for in terms of knowing about it. Farud Ain, Farud Kifaya. There are things that every Muslim has to know, and there are certain things that every Muslim has to do. Alright, so we have to know about these type of things when it comes to, the nullifiers of Islam. When it comes to shirk in general, when it comes to disbelief. You have to know about these things so that you can stay away from them. And with that, inshallah, we'll suffice.